Okay, so before you start this tutorial, I have a bit of a disclaimer for you. I am a work in progress. I am doing my best as I've had many requests for tutorials for this hat that I'm about to show you. But my tutorial is not as graceful as maybe some of the other tutorials you've done. I do believe I will get you through it. I do believe you will have a hat at the end of this tutorial. That being said, you may find that at times my tutorial lacks the finesse. This is new for me. And you might even see a seam in my hat. Try not to look too closely. So my expertise, or my forte, is my creativity. In terms of teaching, I have experience with teaching, but not necessarily with crochet and tutorials. If you have any questions about this, please give it a try. Don't let this scare you away from it. I do think the instruction is there. It just may, like I say, lack the finesse that you would hope for. So if you do have questions, my email is down below in the description box. So please don't hesitate to send me an email, give me your feedback, let me know if you were successful in getting yourself a nice hat. And I'm always looking forward to hearing from you. So give it a try and just be patient with me and know that it may not be as smooth and wonderful as I would hope for, but I did my best, so don't be judgmental and enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go for it. Hi there, I'm Rhonda. Welcome to my channel. So after several requests from you viewers looking for a tutorial to make one of my hats, I have decided to put together this tutorial for this hat here. Now I've made a couple of different, well, I've made a few different hats. I've made beanies, or toques as they're referred to in Canada. I have made a bucket hat, which you have seen, and I've created this hat, and I call this the cloche hat. It's rounded at the top as opposed to the bucket hat, which has a flat surface at the top. And it's got this really cool brim that faces down, but it's pretty versatile because you can face it up, or you can face it part down and part up. It's pretty cool. So stick around and I'm going to show you how to do this hat. Now before we start, I'm going to show you the yarns that I'm going to use. I'm going to use two different ice yarns, and they're two different weights. So I'm going to have to work with them to make them work together. So one of them is this wool cord Aran in this really nice color. I'm not really sure what you would call it. It is 50% wool, 50% acrylic. There it is. And it is considered a 4-weight yarn. Now what I'm going to do is, as you see, there's a few different variations in color here with the addition of some extra color added near the bottom. I'm going to do this one a little bit different, but I'm going to use two colors, and I thought this looked really nice together. So I probably will do a band with this color. And this is Alpaca Deluxe. So it also has a wool content to it, so in that way they're similar. It also has an acrylic content. This has the addition of 20% alpaca in it, so it's 20% alpaca, 50% wool, 30% acrylic, and this is considered a 3-weight, but it is a roving yarn which has variations in thickness. So in some places I would consider it a 2-weight. So I'm going to be doubling this up when I use it so that it goes well with this. But look at how those colors work together. Whoops. And that's what made me decide that I'm going to use these two ice yarns, and I'm going to let you know how I feel about how they work together to create one project. So let's start. I'm going to let you know what you need to use and we can get started with this. Okay, so here are the things you will need to make your hat. First, you will need your yarn, and I'm using a medium weight, a worsted weight number 4 yarn. You don't have to mix your weights. I suggest you use 4 weight right through the entire hat to make it easier. I just happen to be using these, and it allows me to show you if you have different weights of yarn that you want to use together. I'm going to show you how to do that. You'll also need a darning needle. I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook. You'll need a pair of scissors, and you'll need a measuring tape. One thing that I find a challenge all the time is making the hat fit. I found an incredible blog page that goes through everything. I'm going to link you to it, and hopefully that will help you. You may need to measure. Maybe the instructions that I'm giving you will fit one head and not the other. Everybody has different size heads, so we'll do the best we can and hope we come up with a hat that fits. And if you have the proper instruction on how to measure, that will allow you the flexibility to make the hat work for you or whoever you're making it for. So first, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to bring you the hat and explain a few things about those measurements. Okay, so I've raised up my camera so I can show you this hat, and I wanted to make something clear about different measurements. We have the crown, the circumference, and the height of the hat. The circumference is the measurement all the way around the hat. That is the circumference. And the circumference of a medium adult hat is 20 to 21 inches around. If you have the hat flat like so, then you would take half of that. But that is what the circumference is. Then you have the crown of the hat, and the crown of the hat is the circle at the top of the head. And that is where you stop increasing your stitches, because to get the circle, and you'll learn how to do that when I do the tutorial with you, basically you're making a circle and you're increasing with each round until you get to the size that you want of the crown. And a medium adult crown is between 6.25 and 6.75 inches. So I like to go on a smaller side. For myself, I have a smaller head, and I'm always measuring according to my size head, and I would rather have it a little bit snug because it is a crocheted item, so it stretches and it will fit on your head. If it's too loose, it just slides around, and I'm guilty of doing that. Where I've made hats, they were loose and I bend over to tie up my shoes and my hat's falling over my eyes, which is not a good thing. So I would go on the smaller side if I were to recommend it. I would go on a crown size of 6.25 inches unless you're making a hat for a man, and I would go on the size of a 20-inch circumference for that hat. And I believe it's usually measuring the circumference just above your ears minus an inch, something like that. But if you don't want to do that, or you don't have the person around to do that, or you're not sure, it's sometimes difficult to do it on yourself, then 20 inches circumference should be perfect. The other thing is the height of the hat, and with a brim it's a little bit different. With a beanie, it's a little bit clear where you're going to end it, because of course with a brim, if it goes down, then you are going to have the brim over your eyes a little bit, as you saw when I was wearing it. But basically the height is probably where the brim starts to the top, and an average adult height is 8 to 8.5 inches. And I'm curious, let's measure this one and see where it measures up. So I'm going to flatten the hat just to check that out. Okay. So starting at the top, so I actually have mine as, look at that, it's only going down to maximum 7 inches. So really, I am not sure, because this one fits me perfectly, and this is where I run into a problem. And for the circumference of the hat, I would measure here and double it. So I have across about 9.5 inches. Would make it 19 inches, which is just under the recommended medium adult size, so that's fine. Next, I'll flatten the top of the hat to take the crown measurement. And I'm guessing mine looks like 6 inches. Before I started going down, it's probably a little bit more. But yeah, so it all depends on the size of your head. So I'm sure those hat measurements were just a little bit confusing, but as we go along, hopefully it will become clear and we can adjust the sizes as we go. And the other thing I forgot to mention is you will need a stitch marker to help you see where the beginning of your round is. So I'm going to start with my 4-weight yarn, and we are starting with a magic circle. If you don't like to do a magic circle, you don't feel comfortable doing a magic circle, you can simply chain up 2, and then you can make your round of 6 crochets inside the first chain on the hook, and I'll show you how that's done. So if you're using the chain method, you just slip knot, chain up 2, and then you go into that first chain and use that as your ring, and you just make your 6 single crochets in that chain. So that's 2, 3, keep that tail out of the way, 4, 5, and 6. And then you would join it as you do when you're doing the magic circle. Now the thing about the chain is you end up with a hole that cannot be closed entirely. You'll see no matter how much you pull that, you have that space. That can be fixed. When you are done, you can just take that tail and just do a bit of stitching around to close it up. So that's not a problem. When you do the magic circle, however, you pull it closed and it's done right away. Now there's 2 different types of magic circles, and I started with a single magic circle, and then I saw how to do a double magic circle, and I just fell in love with it, and I was hooked, pun intended, since then. So I'm going to show you how to do the double magic circle. And why do I like it better? I find that creating it is easier because I can keep the yarn right on my finger as I'm making those stitches, and you'll see how that's done. I just love it. And also I find that having the double strands of yarn, which I pull together, will actually make that more secure. And again, I should never do tutorials or any videos at night because that's when my cat starts to meow. Okay, so how do we do that double magic circle? And if you know how to do the magic circle your own way, by all means, it's going to work out the same. So go ahead and do it the way you feel comfortable. If you're at all curious about the double magic circle, then watch me, because if you're like me, you're going to love it and you'll be switched over to that double magic circle. And it's easy to do as well. Okay, you're going to lay the yarn over your hand like so with the tail facing you, and you're going to wrap the yarn around your middle finger once and twice. So you have 3 strands, and up above your pointer finger and down behind and in between your ring finger and your baby finger, like so. And then you're going to take your hook and you're going to you're going to secure that tail with your thumb, put the hook through all 3 strands, grab that yarn that's above your finger here and pull that through the 2 strands. Then you're going to chain up 1 because we're doing the single crochet in this hat. And then you're going to do your stitches in the ring while it's still on your finger. So I'm not going to count this one here as a single crochet. I'm going to do 6 single crochets in this ring, and you'll notice how it rotates around my finger. It's really nice. Okay, so what I do is I put the hook inside that circle, yarn over, bring through a loop, yarn over, and pull through the 2 loops on my hook for the first single crochet. And again, insert the hook into the circle, yarn over, pull through that loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 2. And we're going to do a total of 6. So 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can see those stitches are still on my finger, and then I can remove. And with my tail, you'll notice I have 2 strands now. With my tail I pull, and one of them will start to move inwards. That one that's moving inwards, I take that strand and I pull it. So I'm taking the other strand, making that strand tight, and then I take the tail and I pull, and it really secures everything so nice and tight. And then I just count my stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I close up by inserting my hook into that very first stitch that I made, and I do a slip stitch to join, and I've got my very first round right there with the 6 stitches. Okay, so now you've got your first round of 6 single crochets in your circle, whether you did a magic circle or whether you did the chain 2 method. Either one will give you that initial beginning of 6 stitches, and we're going to count those stitches just to make sure where our first stitch is in the round. So we go from the hook here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first we're going to chain 1, and starting with that first stitch, we are going to put in 2 single crochets. So insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your first single crochet, and another single crochet in that same stitch. And we are going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch for a total of 12. So that was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and in the 6th stitch, 11, and 12. And then you're going to join to the very first stitch with a slip stitch to close off your circle. And there you go. And you're going to chain 1. Okay. So now what you should do, just so you have your place and you don't lose count, take your stitch marker and put it into that last stitch. Okay, then you'll know where you started. Now what you're going to do is, let's count our stitches just to make sure we have our 12 stitches. So starting with the one we have the marker in, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the first stitch we're going to be working in once you've chained one, and you're going to put one single crochet into that stitch. In the next stitch, you're going to put 2 single crochets. So that's 2 and 3. And in the next stitch, you're going to put 1 single crochet. And then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And just follow that all along. So you're going to alternate between 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets. One single crochet, 2 single crochets, all the way around. And then your last stitch should be where your stitch marker is, and that should be 2 single crochets in that stitch. You can go ahead, remove that stitch marker and join into the very first stitch of that round with a slip stitch. And now you're going to take your stitch marker and place it into that stitch. And you should have a total of 18 single crochets around this circle. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So there's the first stitch that you'll be working in. You're going to chain up 1. You're going to do in that first stitch 1 single crochet. In the second stitch, 1 single crochet. And in the third stitch, you're going to put in 2 single crochets. And that is the pattern for 1, 1, and 2. So with each set of those, you'll have 4 stitches. A single, and a double. So 4. And you're going to do that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. So remember, it's a single, double. And just to make that clear, when I say double, I'm referring to 2 single crochets in that one stitch. So don't confuse it with double crochet. Okay, reaching the last stitch where a stitch marker is, you should end up with 2 stitches for a total of 24. Go ahead and remove your stitch marker. And in your first stitch, you will join with a slip stitch and chain 1, and go ahead and count your stitches. It's really important that you make sure you have the right number of stitches all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that would be your first stitch that you're working into. And it's a good idea with every round to count your stitches, because I'm guilty of it. If you neglect to do that, you can end up adding one. subtracting one, and you end up with a hat that is not completely straight. So now going into round 5, we've chained 1. We're going to put, keep in mind where that first stitch is, we're going to put a stitch marker into that last stitch we did. And now we are going to do a single crochet in that very first stitch. In the next stitch, a single crochet. In the next stitch, a single crochet. And then in the next stitch, 2 single crochets. So each set has 5 stitches. Continue to do that around, and I will meet you at the end. So at the end of round 5, you have 30 stitches. You're going to chain 1 going into round 6, and what we're going to do with round 6, we're going to do single crochets in the first 4 stitches, and in the 5th stitch we will do 2 single crochets. So each set will have 6 stitches because you're doing 4 singles and then a double. So let's do that now, starting with the first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 in the 5th, 4, 5, and 6. And we'll do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 5, and 6, for a total of 12. Because remember, we're going in sets of 6, so it's going with each set you're going to add 6 on. So when I do it, I'm always counting like that. So for instance, 12, I will count to myself like this: 13, 14, 15, 16, and I know in that last one for 2, 17, and 18. Okay, I'm halfway. You can notice by the stitch marker that I'm halfway. So I know by the time I get around, I'm going to have 36 stitches with two single crochets in that final stitch for 35 and 36. I will meet you when we get to that point. So here we are completing round 6. I'm going into that final stitch where the stitch marker is for 35 and 36. And then I could take out the stitch marker. You're going to notice that your circle might be turning upwards, but actually this is the outside of your hat, so it will end up working its way so that it's going downwards. Okay, so remember to join with a slip stitch to your first stitch, and then chain 1, and then in that final stitch you're going to put your stitch marker again. With every round you put your stitch marker, and now we're going into round 7, and we're going to start off with 1 stitch, 1 single crochet in that first stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 1 single crochet into each of the 5 stitches, and now 2 single crochets into the 6th for 6 and 7. So we're always going up 1 with each round, and that's how we're expanding our circle. So again, we're going to do 5 single crochets into each of the next 5 stitches, and in the 6th stitch we'll have 6 and 7. So we're looking at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then with the 2, 13 and 14 being in the 1 stitch. So again, now you're advancing by 7. So at the end of this round, you should have a total of 42 stitches. Okay, so in that last stitch where the marker is, if you're doing it right, it will be 41 and 42, and I'll meet you when you get there. Okay, I removed my stitch marker, and I'm going to do a slip stitch to join again, and chain 1, and put my stitch marker back. And if you did that correctly, of course, you got your 42 stitches for round 7, and we're going into round 8. You'll notice that it feels very stiff. That's because you're doing the single stitch, and what's nice about that is when you have a hat with a brim, oftentimes it is not a floppy type of hat. It's a very nice form-fitted hat, and by doing the single crochet, that's exactly what you're getting, a really nice solid hat. Okay, so going into round 8, you've chained 1, and now again we're advancing up. Before we did single crochets in 5 stitches, so now we're going to do single crochets in 6 stitches, and then a double single crochet in the 7th stitch for sets of 8. And when you get around to the end, if you're counting correctly, you should end up with 48 stitches, with 47 and 48 ending up in that stitch marker. So let's start this together, and then I'll let you complete the round on your own. So we're starting with that first stitch, and it's always a good idea to do a count when you start. I like to count from where I put the stitch marker to count back to the number in that round, which was 42. So I'm going to do that to make sure I'm putting my hook in the right stitch. Okay, so here is the first stitch that I'm going into. So I'm going to do 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and remember in the 7th stitch 2, 4, 7, and 8 in each set of stitches around. Okay, and again, I like to continue just so I can keep my count. I keep it in my head that I am doing 6. So I'm thinking after I've done my 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And that's in my head. I know that's 6 stitches, and then I'm doing 2 in the next for 15 and 16. And since I know I'm working in sets of 8, as long as I know it's a multiple of 8, I know I'm counting correctly. And I've been doing this, and I know you have to keep count. I've done it when I've felt drowsy and I lose count, and it's very frustrating. So this is a good project to do when you're wide awake, because it really does require that you count those stitches really carefully, because you just don't want a warped hat. You know, we don't like to think of ourselves with warped heads, so this is really, really important. So I'm at 16, and work your way around. Remember, it's 6 single crochets in each of the next 6 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the 7th for sets of 8 with each set, and I will meet you when you get to the end. And of course, as I said, you should have 48 stitches by the time you get to the end of this 8th round. Okay, so did you get 48? Remember now we have to join with a slip stitch in the first stitch and chain 1, and then I'm going to again put my stitch marker back into that first stitch, and I am now ready for round 9. And in round 9, remember, we're just going up 1 single stitch. So before we were doing 6 and 2 for sets of 8, now we are going to do 7 and 2 for sets of 9. So let's start that going into the first stitch, and again, always important to count your stitches back to see where that first one is, and just to make sure you're correct before you start. So it should always look like it's in the same place, but you know, it's always a good idea to check. Okay, so let's start. So remember, we're doing 7 single crochets in the next 7 stitches, and then 2 single crochets for sets of 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the next stitch 8 and 9. Keep doing that around. So remember, 7 singles and then 2 in 1 stitch. And so we're going in increments of 9. So the next set will be 18 and then 27 and so on and so forth. And this round you should end up with 54 stitches, with 53 and 54 ending up in this last stitch where your stitch marker is. So go ahead and I'll let you do that on your own, and I will meet you when you come to the end with your 54 stitches. What we are doing in round 10 is we were going to do 1 single crochet in the first 8 stitches and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And that will be a set of 10. Okay, so multiples of 10 stitches around. So we were doing 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And next stitch, 2 single crochets for 9 and 10. Okay. So remember, each time we go around, there's sets. You're doing 6 sets of that number. So 6 sets of 10 is going to be 60. And I don't think I mentioned it that way before, but it really helps if you talk about the math, because then you know what you're going to end up with. Remember, we started off with 6 at the beginning, and each time we're adding 1. So here we are doing 10 in each set, and that will bring us to 60. So again, 1 single crochet and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 in the next one for 9 and 10. So now, so far, we have 20 stitches around, and we're going to do another set of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, which is what I called a double, but remember, not a double crochet, a double in the sense of we're doing 2 single crochets in that stitch. So we've got 30, and another 30 is going to bring us to 60 in that last stitch where the stitch marker is. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, 9 and 10. That brings us to 40 stitches. And now we're doing another 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 2 in the next stitch for another 10. And now we're at 50. So we should have another 10 stitches to go. So let's do that now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And where the stitch marker is, we're going to have our final 2 stitches for 9 and 10. And that, of course, brings us to our 60 stitches. Okay, remember, at the end of the round, you're going to join with a slip stitch. You're going to chain 1, and you're going to put your stitch marker back in to mark the beginning of your next round. So in round 11, we're just, of course, moving up 1 single crochet in that set. So instead of doing 8 single crochets, we are doing 9 single crochets. In the 10th stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets, and that is multiples of 11 now. So we're doing 6 sets of 11, which means we're going to have the end result will be 66 stitches by the time we reach the end. So you understand how this is working with the math, right? We keep increasing by 6. Okay, so on to round 11, starting in the first stitch. You're going to single crochet in 9 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And of course, in the next stitch, we have 2 single crochets for 10 and 11. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then 10 and 11. And that's 22. So work your way around. So 11 in each set. You should have a total of 66. I'll meet you when you get to that point. Okay, so at the end of round 11, you should end up with 66 stitches. and then chain 1, put your stitch marker back in, and now we're on to round 12, where we're going to do single crochet in the first 10 stitches and then 2 single crochets in the 11th stitch. So we're doing sets of 12, and we're going to end up with 70 stitches by the time we get back to the stitch marker. So let's start that out. We're going to start in the first stitch, 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then in the 11th stitch, 2 single crochets for 11 and 12. Okay, and then keep going around doing 10 single crochets in the next 10 stitches, and in the 11th stitch do 2 single crochets, and when you get to the beginning you should have a total of 70 stitches. Okay, so for round 12 you will have sets of 10 single crochets in the first 10 stitches. So you will have 1 single crochet in the first 10 stitches, 2 single crochets in the 11th stitch. So you're doing 6 sets of 12 for a total of 72 stitches. By the time you get back to your stitch marker, you should have 72 stitches. So continue until you get back to the stitch marker, and we'll go on to round 13. Okay, so at the end of round 12, you should have 72 stitches, and we're going to advance to round 13. Remember to chain 1 at the end. And round 13, we're working exactly the same way. We are going to increase by 6 stitches. We are going to do sets of 13 with 11 single crochets, and the last stitch with 2 single crochets. So I'll start you off, and then you can go around to the end, and we are going to end up with 78 stitches. So let's begin. I'll move this stitch marker out of the way, starting with the first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then in the 12th stitch we're going to have 12 and 13. Okay, so in that 12th stitch we're going to have 2 single crochets, and we're basically doing rounds of 13, sets of 13. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, 12 and 13. So far we've done 26 stitches. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and in the next stitch 2 single crochets for another 13. So now we have 39 around, and remember we're going to end up with 78, so you should be halfway. So basically you should see your stitch marker opposite to where you're at. So finish the other half of 39 stitches and I'll meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, so the end of round 13, 78 stitches. Put my stitch marker back into the first stitch, and remember, chain 1. We're moving on to round 14, and the next 2 rounds, round 14 and 15, are exactly the same principle as the other rounds, where we're going to add 6 more stitches. So we increase the number of single crochets by 1 before we do the 2 single crochets. So in round 14, not surprisingly, it's single crochet in the first 12 stitches and 2 single crochets in the next. So we have 14 stitches in each set. So 6 sets of 14 stitches, and we end up with 84 stitches by the end of this round. So let's start that out. The first stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then next one, 2 single crochets for 13 and 14. So you should feel comfortable with this now to be able to complete the rest, to end up with your round 14, finishing off with 84 stitches by the time you get back to your stitch marker. So go on ahead and do that, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. Okay, so at the end of round 14, you should have your 84 stitches. And now we're going into round 15. And remember, I said it's the same idea, but you are going to have single crochets in the first 13 stitches and 2 single crochets in the 14th stitch. So we are going to have 6 rounds of 15 for a total of 90 stitches. I'll start the first set of 15 with you, and then you can carry on and complete the round on your own. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and the next stitch 2 single crochets for 14 and 15. When you get to the halfway point, which would be here, you should have 45 stitches, and then all the way around 90 stitches. So complete that, and I will see you at the end of the round. Okay, so completing round 15, you should have a total of 90 stitches, and I hope you remembered at the end of each round you would be joining to the first stitch and chaining one. Everything is the same. Now we're going into round 16 to 18. For round 16, 17, and 18, you're just going to single crochet in each stitch around. So you're going to be doing 3 rounds of 90 stitches. Remember to, at the end of each round, you're going to join and you're going to chain 1. And I'm going to meet you after your 3 rounds of 90 stitches. Okay, so completing round 18, you'll see that you're actually creating what is starting to look like the top of your hat as it starts to curve in. And when I take the hat that I've made, you can see, let me bring this up a little, you can see how it's starting to take on the form of the hat. Okay, so round 19 is going to be a little bit different because we're going to start to taper in a little as we go down the sides. So we've completed the top of the hat, and now we're going to work down the sides, but it's not going to be straight down. It's going to curve in a little bit so it really form fits to the head. You'll notice because of the smaller hook we used and the single crochet, we're actually getting a really nice solid hat, and that's what we want with this type of hat. Again, taking a look at this hat, it is definitely a stiffer type of form-fitting hat. Okay, it's not a drapey type of hat like you might get with a beanie. This is meant to be a stiffer type of hat. So for round 19, what you're going to do is 13 single crochets in the next 13 stitches, and remember that you have to join to your first stitch with a slip stitch at the end of every round. That still is the same, it doesn't change, and then chain up 1. So once you've done that, go ahead and let's do 1 single crochet in the next 13 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Bring it down just a little bit so you can see closer up. Okay, so now in the next 2 stitches, we're going to join them together. So we're going to do a single crochet 2 together, which is also a single crochet decrease. And the way to do that is insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then instead of completing that stitch, we're going to go into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And now we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So basically what we've done is we've taken 2 stitches and turned it into 1. So over those 15 stitches, we now have 14 stitches. So we're going to end up with a round of 14 times 6. So remember, each set, there's 6 sets in every round. So 6 sets of 14. We're going to end up with 84 stitches around. Let's do that one more time together. So we're doing 1 single crochet in each of the next 13 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And over the next 2 stitches, remember we're doing that decrease, single crochet 2 together. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And again, all the way around, 13 stitches and 2 together. I'll meet you back at the end of this round where you should end up with 84 stitches. Okay, so after that round, you can really see that your hat is taking shape. It's getting more and more formed into your hat. For rounds 20 and 21, you're just going to be doing 1 single crochet around as we work down the side of the hat. So I will let you do that on your own. It's 84 stitches around. And remember, again, at the end of each round, you are going to join to the first stitch with a slip stitch and chain 1. So you should have 2 more rows or 2 more rounds of 84 stitches per round. And I will meet you when you've completed that. Okay, so after completing row 20 and 21 with your 84 stitches, you notice your hat is definitely shaping up. We're going to have another row with decreases in row 22. You're going to make sure you join and chain 1. And now we are going to make 1 single crochet in the next 12 stitches, and in the 13th and 14th stitch we are going to single crochet 2 together, or also called a single crochet decrease. So let's do that together. So we're going to do 12 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then remember, 13 and 14, we're going to join those 2 to make 1 stitch. So you insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and you just did a single crochet decrease. And again, we're going to do 12 single crochets in the next 12 stitches. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12. And then again, we're going to single crochet 2 together, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, and again you're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then join 2 together to do a single crochet decrease, and all the way around until you get back to the beginning where your stitch marker is. And you will have a total of 78 stitches. I will meet you when you get back to the end of this round. Okay, so in round 23, we're just going to crochet 1 single crochet around for a total of 78 stitches, and again you're going to join to the first stitch with a slip stitch and chain 1 after the end of every round. So go ahead and do 1 round of single crochets, and I will meet you after this next round. Okay, at this point, round 24, what you need to do is take out your tape measure and measure from your stitch marker all the way around to see the circumference of your hat. And I measured mine and I was at 20 inches. So I'm just going to take it like so. I'm just going to pull out my measuring tape and measure all the way around like this, all the way back to the beginning. And I was at just around 20. So I'm happy with that. I don't need to do any more decreases to be comfortable on my head. But if you need another decrease, then you can do that. And the way to do that is by single crocheting in the first 11 stitches and then single crochet 2 single crochets together for a single crochet decrease, and you will end up with 72 stitches around. I'm perfectly fine with the 78 stitches. So I am going to continue working my way down to create the height of my hat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crochet 8 rows and see how the height of my hat is. If I'm happy with it, then I could start increasing for my brim. If not, I will continue crocheting a single crochet around for whatever number of rows I need to get the desired height. So that's what you need to do now. Either do that 1 extra decrease row to get the circumference that you want, and then just do a single crochet around for 8 rows or as many rows as you need to be the length that you want. It should be just above your ears, just about that area where you want to start your brim. So I will do 8 rows or more if I need, and I will come back when I've got my desired height. So go ahead and crochet your length of your hat, and I will meet you back here when you've done that. I am going to do about 8 rows. I'll let you know if I needed to do any extra when I come back. Okay, one other thing I forgot to mention, I'm going to do my rounds, but remember I wanted to do a band in this color, so I won't go all the way down to where I'm starting the brim. I'm going to go just above that so I can do a section of change of color. So I may do 6 rows. I'm going to see, I'm not really sure at this point how many rows I'm going to do, but once I figure that out, I will come back and I will show you how to change color if you want to do the same. There's nothing wrong with doing your hat all in one color if that's what you prefer, but if you want to do the 2 colors, then don't go all the way down. Leave some space above your ears to create that band, or wherever you want to add your color. You may want to just do a different color brim, and that's okay too. Remember, this is your hat, your design, and you can add that second color wherever you like. So I will get back to you and let you know how many rows I did before I start the color change. One extra thing is this is a very good time to have one of these little devices, which is a counter, and you can count rows or stitches with this. When I am doing a series of rows that are all the same, then I like to use this to keep track of my rows so I don't get confused. Also, this is nice to have if you are setting your work aside for another day. Then this is great because you can leave it on and it will just go back to the row you're at and you can continue from there. So it's got a little strap if you like fitting it on your finger. I don't typically do that. I just have it near me that I can keep count of my rows. So I just thought I'd show you that. Great little tool to have. And this is a Susan Bates stitch counter. Okay, so I crocheted 6 rows. You could see the side is increased, and I thought this is the perfect time to switch colors because I don't have enough for another round, and I do have enough length that I could start making a border, a band right at this point. So I'm going to show you how to join with another color, and I finished the row. I have not joined yet, and so that's when I'm going to add my next color. And remember, I said that my yarn that I'm using is a 3-weight, so I'm going to need 2 strands of it, which is fine. A very practical way when you're using 2 strands of yarn to double it is to take one end from the outside, one end from the inside, and work them both together, as opposed to using 2 separate skeins or balls of yarn. You can use the same ball by using an end from the inside and an end from the outside. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my join. So I'm going to put my hook in, wrap my yarn around. I've got 2 loops, and instead of using that same yarn, I'm going to now bring in my new color, put that around my hook, and pull it through. And then I can tighten up the original yarn that I was using, tighten up here. And what I like to do is I like to take these 2 ends, so I'll just increase that loop a little bit so I don't lose it. I like to take the end from the first color and what the color I'm adding, and tie those 2 together just to secure that new yarn in place. And then I could cut the yarn that I'm no longer using, and I did pretty well with it. I just have this much left over, which that will be good if I wanted to add a tag to my hat. I've got the yarn there for it. And so now I've added the new yarn, pull it tight, and I can chain 1 with it. And I can always take these ends and weave them right into my work, which saves me from weaving them in at the end. I just hide them in my work. So I will do that for at least part of the way. And again, I just continue around as I've been doing with a single crochet around, like so, hiding in those tail ends. If it starts looking too thick, then I could just let it go and weave them in afterwards. But right now it's going in quite nicely, not really showing any extra bulk with me bringing those ends into my work. And I just keep going around for whatever rows I want the length of that band. And like I said, it's all personal preference. If you would like to make the rest of the hat in your secondary color, you can do that. I may just do a band. I'll see how it looks. You don't have to decide ahead of time. You can just look at your work as you go along and decide what you want to do once you see how it's working up. And this is working out really nicely. You can't see that it's 2 separate weights of yarn because I've doubled it up, and it makes a nice little ridge there. So I will continue for 2 or 3 rows, and I'll come back and show you how that looks. And you can add your color the way I added mine, or again, if you just want to make your hat one color, that's okay too. So I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like when I've added that band, and you can work on that and just do it the way you like. You can make your band as wide as you want and just try on the hat and see how that fits as you go along, which is what I've been doing, just to make sure that the hat is fitting, that it's not too tight, that it's not too loose. And one thing that you'll know about this when you are crocheting a hat is it will stretch, it will fit on your head. So even if it feels a little bit tight, it's going to work its way onto your head. It's going to fit. So keep that in mind. Don't be worried if it's a bit snug at the beginning, because it's better to be a little bit snug rather than to be too loose, because it's yarn and it will loosen up over time, especially if you wash it, things soften up. So keep going. I will meet you at the end of the length of your hat to show you how to add on your brim. Okay, so here is what I've done so far, and I did 6 rows down of the main color, and then I came down and I did 5 rows of the secondary color, and now I'm ready to start expanding for the brim. I think that's low enough on the forehead to start making the brim to come out. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so now moving along into the brim of the hat. Again, do the same thing where you join and chain 1, and what we're going to do in this next row is you're going to do a single crochet in the first stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch. I've decided to go with the same color because I thought that this wasn't enough. I wanted to add some more, and I'm not sure, I might make the whole brim in this color. I will see as I go along. But again, next stitch, 1 single crochet, the next stitch, 2 single crochets. So basically we are alternating all the way around between 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets in a stitch. Okay, so 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets. So continue along like that, and I will meet you when you get to the end of this round. Again, when you end each round, remember to join to the first stitch with a slip stitch and chain up 1. So that doesn't change. That's the same with every round. Okay, so if you started off with 78 stitches, then you should have 117 stitches around after doing 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets all the way around. You can already see the brim starting to form. For the next rows, you were just going to crochet 1 single crochet in each stitch, and you can make the brim as small or as large as you'd like. So go ahead and do a couple of rounds and see how it looks, and you can stop it whenever you want. You can do whatever color for the brim and finish when you like the way it looks. Okay, so here is my wonderful model, and I think I've given her the name Sabrina. I don't know why, but she is Sabrina, and she's modeling the hat, and I'm quite happy with the way it looks right now. Once I did the increases for the brim, I went around the hat 7 times with single crochets all the way around, and I just think that it's a really nice size right now, really perfect. And I'm going to show you what to do next. So as you've noticed, I did not go back to the main color. I decided that I really like the brim taking up all of this color. I love the way it worked up. Look how pretty that is. So right now I'm also going to do the border all the way around in the same color. I no longer need the stitch marker because I am going to know when I come to the other end, because what I am doing now is a reverse single crochet, so going the opposite direction all the way around the brim. And the way we do it is simply a single crochet going the other way around. So this is how it's done. Insert the hook into the stitch to the right. Yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through, insert the hook into the stitch to the right, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through, and do that all the way around the hat until you come back to the beginning. Okay, so coming to the last stitch here, I'm going to do a reverse slip stitch. Just put your hook into the first stitch, pull through, and then pull through the loop on your hook, and then pull it tight. You've cut your yarn, pull through, and just position it nicely so that you don't see where you've joined it. And you take your darning needle. I'm going to weave in all of your and any of your loose ends. Like there's one inside in the center of your hat. Now if you did the chain 2, you may need to use that yarn to close up the hole at the top of your hat. So I'm going to weave in my ends on the inside. And look at that, you can't even see where it was joined. And you'll just weave that end in a couple of different directions to lock it into place. We don't want it coming out. So if you do it 3 times, it should stay in position. Now I have 2 ends, of course, because I doubled my yarn. So it's a little trickier because I'm grabbing 2 ends through, which is why you see me struggling just a little bit, but not a big deal. That's done. I can cut that short. Look at that finishing edge. It looks so beautiful. It just really adds that finishing touch, especially in this yarn. I particularly like that because you see a bit of a stripe in there, although I've seen it with plain yarn as well, so I'm sure if you use plain yarn it looks just great. And then I've got the one on the inside, so I can turn that inside out to show you. And if you have a little hole at the top, of course you want to close that up. So to do that, you would just take your needle and stitch around here and then pull it closed. But basically you're going through the stitches in that top round. And for me, I don't want to pull too tight. I just want to weave in various directions, making sure that I don't bring the needle through to the other side. I want it to be clear because I don't want to see any odd looking yarn on that side. I want to keep this invisible. And once I've gone through a few different times and I feel quite confident that I've locked my yarn into place, I can take that scissors and cut. Turn the hat again. And there you go. And that's it. That's how you make this beautiful hat. I hope you really enjoyed this, and I hope you love your hat. And if you do and you like this video, then if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends so other people can make this hat as well. And hit that notification bell to request all notifications so you don't miss a video that I put out, whether it's a yarn haul or just yarny talk or a tutorial. I'd like you to see every video that I put out, and I'd like you to enjoy them. And also, if you have any suggestions, please share that with me as well. You can put it in a comment, or you can send me an email. My email address is below in the description box, and I will show you what it looks like on me. So here it is, the finished hat. I really like it, and I'm looking forward to making a matching cowl for it as well. I like the idea that I left this one color. I think it looks great. I love the variation in the color and how it goes with the taupe or ecru at the top. This is how much I have left of that ball. So I used quite a bit of it, but I still have some left that I could use in the matching cowl. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you love your hat. So have a great day, and I will see you shortly with another video. Bye for now.